Hi, I'm Dawn.
I'm Ashley.
And this is Mel.
Welcome to the Work It, You Are Worth It podcast.
We are here to discuss awareness, growth, and healthy relationships.
Are you ready?
Good morning, Mel. Good morning, Ash. How are you guys today?
Good morning, Dawn. Good morning, Ashley. I am fantastic. How are you guys?
Good morning, Mel. Good morning, Dawn. I'm wonderful. It's a quiet Sunday morning, so doing great. Hope everybody out there is also.
I went to the holistic fair yesterday, like this healing fair yesterday. They do it like once a year in Ottawa. It's not that big. Like it's not as big as I've seen other fairs be, but it was really cool. There's some really neat things out there now. Um, like technology is really like is having a place when it comes
hmm
into healing these days, isn't it? Like they're ionizing water and adding crystals to it to like it's supposed to um balance the energy in the room with this like little water diffuser. I don't know, it was really interesting. Like I saw lots of neat things yesterday.
That is very, very interesting. And I love to learn about that stuff. It's crazy how
Yeah.
much technology affects holistic, like things that we've been doing for hundreds of
hmm
years, and we still do it. It's just done a little bit differently because of the technology.
Yeah, it is. It's really
Um,
it's very different. Yeah, that's what I did yesterday. What did you guys do?
nice.
Cameron had a horse show, so we were at the barn all day. She took fifth place, so that was
Congrats.
awesome.
Congrats.
It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it. It was a
Oh,
beautiful day. The
Oh,
temperature was perfect. We got a sun. And then after we got done at the horse show, we got home at like 4. And I mean, we got there at like 7 in the morning. So it was all day. And then we got home and I was like, you know what? It's such a nice day. Let me go ahead and mow the lawn. So I mowed and I weed eated and we did the horse show and the house is clean. It's just so nice to start that way.
oh,
yeah.
that means that today you just get to chill. That's awesome.
Yes. Do the podcast and make a decent dinner and relax.
Nice.
Nice.
What about
Nice.
you,
Yeah,
Dawn?
it was beautiful yesterday. It was beautiful here too. I took the dog out and actually sat outside for probably a good hour. Other than that, I hung out with Colin, which, is my norm. But we made a dinner. I'm not a big meatloaf fan, but I saw this recipe. Well, he found a recipe for meatloaf and wanted to make it, and I'm like, okay. And right, I'm trying to prepare for surgery, getting meals in the freezer that I can, and so made some, yeah. So anyways, we made this meatloaf, and he made homemade breadcrumbs and made roasted potatoes, and we made, yeah, it's been cooking has been a big thing for us this last week. He's made homemade biscotti. I don't know, just a bunch of stuff. So we did that and um just yeah, just chilled and hung out. So today I have to go over to my mom's for a little bit, and other than that, I plan on probably doing that in my comfy clothes because, well, I told you guys I had nothing clean this morning and I never get to that point where I haven't done laundry. But um yeah, so that's
That's okay.
that's yeah,
Laundry
it
can
is.
wait.
It can. I mean, I can, like I said, I'm not too good to go somewhere in my lounging clothes. I'll just change them when I come home so they don't have the elements on them. Anyways, all right. So we last week were talked about we're talking about survival characteristics, and we've been had this little series of talking about awareness within ourselves, um and then wanted to look at what should we look at? What do we need to look at within ourselves to get to know ourselves better? In the hopes and in the effort to then be able to know ourselves better, to be able to interact with others. And so last week we did denial characteristics, and this week we're going to talk about low self-esteem. So this is uh, this is one that's near and dear to my heart personally. It's one I struggle with. Um, I struggle with all of them, but this one hits. I mean, this one is if you look at a laundry list of stuff, it's one I check most of the boxes. So, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I know that when we were talking about low self-esteem over the last few years, this is definitely one that I have certainly found challenging to step out of.
Hmm. Do you Did you realize that you struggled with low self-esteem, like the way you are aware of it now? I mean, I know you didn't know it the way of, excuse me, the way you were aware of it now, but did you realize it when you were in the midst of all your unhealthiness, that what it really meant and that you, yeah.
Like that's an interesting question because I knew that I wasn't happy with myself. I knew that I wasn't nice to myself. I wasn't, it's odd because I wasn't aware of my relationship with myself, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I knew that I could be better to myself. I guess it wasn't like like I didn't have the awareness that I was in low self esteem or that I had low self esteem, but I definitely had an awareness that I wasn't happy within myself and I
Hmm.
wasn't nice to myself.
Yeah. I think about this one for me, it's right. I knew that those thoughts would be and get in my head where I wouldn't that I wasn't equal to someone else, or I wasn't, yeah, that it really was, I wasn't equal to someone else. And that's where the kind I would define it. And it's really similar to control, right? Control I wore, and we'll get to control later, but I wore control as a badge of honor. People told me I was a controlling and I wore it as a badge of honor. This one was, I knew it, that I didn't see myself equal to others, but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know the magnitude of what it played in my life and how much it affected my relationships with others.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I definitely did not realize the magnitude of self esteem and what having high self esteem or self love or right knowing being humble, knowing the value that I hold. I
Hmm.
didn't realize how greatly it impacted my day to day life.
Yeah.
What about you,
Mel.
Mel? Did you realize that you were?
Oh God, yeah. I knew I didn't have any self-esteem. I was just that kid that never had it. Um and as as a early adult, like a young adult and yeah, I honestly did. I knew I didn't have any self-esteem. I wasn't it showed in just in my personality, really. I was either really quiet or I thought I was a know-it-all. I mean, it was extremes. Like I was either one way or the other way, and it was only because I didn't have any self-worth and I didn't think I had any value to anything or to
Mhm.
anybody. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And I always felt like that, and it's hard to come out of. Like I still I do know now like I have a lot of value and I do have a lot of worth, but I still sometimes struggle with it to this day. Like it's a practice to feel good about myself.
Mm.
Yeah, it was very, for me, it was very much like I knew I was a good person and I knew I was doing the quote unquote right things. I was a good person. I knew I
Hmm.
was a good person. But self-esteem is different than
Yeah.
being a good person, right? Knowing I was a good person, knowing I was making the quote unquote right decisions. It for me, like I knew those things, but then when I truly sat with myself, I very similar to what you were saying, Dawn, and even what Mel was saying, right? I thought other people were better than me. I thought I was less
Hmm.
than. I thought I had to do this or this or this in order to be loved, to keep up, to have value.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm just going to read really quick what AI says um, living in low self-esteem is, and then we can kind of talk about it and see if you guys agree um, or disagree. Living in low self-esteem means experience a persistent and negative perception of oneself. It is characterized by a lack of confidence, feelings of inadequacy, and a tendency to judge oneself harshly. Individuals with low self-esteem often feel unlovable, awkward, or incompetent, and may be hypersensitive to criticism. They may also exhibit social withdrawal, hostility, and excess preoccupation with personal problems. These behaviors can lead to mental and physical health issues as well as affect personal and professional relationships.
So, yes, I agree with that definition.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's super important to stress that while, yes, I was 100% in that, and
Yeah.
yes, that is exactly how I felt in that. I did not know at the time. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
aware at the time that I felt that.
Like if you would have read this to me 10 years ago, I would have been like, no, 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 I don't think so. I don't think so. But there would have been this haunting feeling in me that something would have resonated from it. But now looking at it, reading it, and reflecting to where I was, I definitely this fits for me, and I can see a lot of this in my life, especially when it comes to, we talk about goals. We can talk about goals, and when it comes to a professional, personal, in my personal life of where I of how I want to, where I want to be in my life, where I what I my dreams. I think there was always been dreams, and it's held me back. It's held me back in relationships with friends. It's held me back in I don't know, it's just held me back in so many different areas of my life.
Yeah, I think if 10 years ago you would have read that to me, the first two sentences, I would have been like, no, I don't have low self esteem. But then as you went on and listed the characteristics of someone living in low self esteem, I'd have been like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I
Hmm.
do that. Holy crap, I guess I am. Like, like all of the things you said were accurate and the characteristics of it were there and were accurate. But if you'd have asked me if I had low self esteem, I would have been like, no, I don't. I have high self esteem. I know I'm a good person.
Right.
But knowing I'm a good person is different than how I treat myself, how I view myself, how I look at myself, how I talk to myself. Like, and it's different. Knowing I'm a good person is different than how I value myself.
I think too, um, just when you don't have self-esteem, I know with myself, I was always trying to prove I was a good person.
Yeah.
It was not knowing I was a good person. I was trying to prove it to the world. Like, I'm a good person, I'm worth something, but I didn't feel it. Like, I
Hmm.
honestly didn't feel it.
When I started my journey in my codependency journey, I started seeing a therapist who actually told me about the 12-step program. And I remember one of the things that really hit me. And one of the examples is right, and it talks in here, like just being able to make decisions, making a difficult decision. For me, it wasn't even about difficult decisions. It's right. It was just making a decision at all where I could be compared to someone else. And one of the early analogies that was used to me, and I still use this when I work with others, is ordering off a menu or choosing what I want to eat in for dinner, picking a restaurant. Um, and I never would have thought like that never would have crossed my mind that that is an aspect of my low self-esteem where I don't even know what I want to eat because what if what I want to eat is wrong?
Yeah, I remember that too, or um picking out the restaurant and like I wouldn't take what I felt like eating. I mean, I would pick out a restaurant that I would even like just to like if someone liked seafood, I can't even eat seafood. So if someone would like seafood, I would pick out a seafood restaurant and not eat. I just have a salad.
Hmm.
like yeah, because I didn't feel that, you know, I always thought someone else's needs were way more important than my own.
Right. And I think it's right, it's what I said earlier. Like it's it's not wasn't a conscious I have low self-esteem because I that's not what I thought before all of this awareness, right? It was just I was not equal. Someone else deserved, like I was a kind person. I was considerate of others, right? And so choosing something someone else or even not making a decision and letting the other person make a decision was just me being kind. And that's the way I thought of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting, and it's even funny that it's still something I don't want to say I struggle with it. I think the difference now for me with my girlfriends is when we're picking restaurants, and we pick restaurants all the dang time. I think I'm in a different place now with it where I just really don't care. Right? They never steer me wrong, right? Those one girl, when I have one girlfriend that just she loves to take control of it. She loves to like organize and all of this and make it all work and happen. And you know what? I think that's where I'm at now is like, I just don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Oh, I know we like the same foods. I know she's going to pick the right restaurant. I don't need to control it. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need, and I think there's a different place of being where I think before it was a place of I was so unsure of me, and now I just don't care. And very different than self-esteem.
Um, I agree. I agree now too. And I don't think it's just that, um, like I do care, like I care about things I do. I do care about where we
Yeah.
eat and stuff like that. But it's, I, it doesn't require as much thought as it used to.
Hmm.
Sometimes like picking a restaurant or picking out what we were going to eat was debilitating. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
That
It's
is
like,
honestly the worst conversation in our house. And it has nothing to do with self esteem. I mean, I can see, like, in your original explanation, Mel, how that did have to do with self esteem, right? Because I've definitely done that where I'm like, oh, I know this person likes Chinese restaurants. It's their favorite place. I hate Chinese restaurants, but whatever. I know they like it. So we're going to go to Chinese. And I would suggest we go to Chinese. That is clearly low self esteem.
Hmm.
However, just like you were saying, Don, I genuinely just don't care. And if I don't care, it has no impact on self esteem. I just let somebody else choose.
Right.
Um, one of the things I have noticed that's God, that's always a difficult conversation in my house because I typically don't care what I eat. But one of the things I have noticed is that when I don't want something, now that my self esteem is higher and I actually value
Yes.
who I am and what I do and don't want, when I don't want something, I won't go anymore. Like if somebody says we're going to get Chinese, well, that's cool. You guys go get your Chinese. I'll see you when you get back. I don't want Chinese. And that's
Yeah.
okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And I think I think really that's actually what you said is a good point. I've found with this more is I know what I care about and what matters to me, and so then I can decide that what I do with it. And I'm more confident in those decisions. And that's where I really see low self-esteem has changed for me. Um, but I want to go back to looking at, we talked about, this restaurant, but what other ways has low self-esteem played a factor that you now are aware of?
my sensitivity to criticism was off the charts. I, oh, it's that now that was debilitating. Um, if anyone would point out something in me, like because I was probably judging myself for it, so I was trying to hide it really, really well, but I wasn't doing a really good job of hiding, whatever it is or whatever. And then it gets pointed out, that would destroy me. Um, Especially if it was like a work situation, like or something like that. Or something where I've given a lot of my all to it, and then yeah, criticism is a big thing for me. I
For
really struggle with criticism.
For me, it was when they were correct.
Yeah.
That
Mm,
and not I that's a huge thing because it used to be if somebody said, Ashley, hell, I've used this example a million times. Everybody on this podcast knows Ashley is terrible about interrupting. But 10 years ago, if somebody had said, Ashley is you are terrible about interrupting. I really need you to stop interrupting me. I would have gotten very butthurt about it. I would have been defensive. I would have been angry. I would have felt like the reason they said that is because my opinion and what I had to say didn't matter. And the reality now is I have higher self esteem, I have a higher self worth. So I am able to see somebody saying, God, Ashley, you interrupt so much is not them not caring about what I think or what I have to say. It's them wanting to be able to get through their thought. Right. So I don't take that criticism and twist it and turn it into
mhm.
Ashley's a bad person and Ashley's done this wrong and Ashley fucks everything up and she can't do anything right. And like I used to, something as simple as, can I finish my sentence, would turn into, they don't like me. They don't care what I have to say. They don't want to hear me. My opinion doesn't matter. Um, I would turn myself into this victim of being wrong and everybody hating me when the reality was they just wanted to finish their sentence.
Yeah.
And it was like that with everything, right? I'm using interrupting as the example, but like it was literally anything. If somebody criticized me, I couldn't hear it. Even there was this one time I did my makeup and I thought it was great. I thought it looked amazing. It was a little much, but I thought it looked amazing. And I walked out and I asked the person, "What do you think? How does it look?" And they said, "You look like a clown."
Mm.
And I went in and I washed my makeup off and I stopped wearing makeup.
Hmm.
I didn't just wash off the extreme color or the big
Right.
blue eyes or just say, fuck it, that's their opinion. I like it. I think it looks good. I'm going to wear it. No, I went and washed the makeup off and I stopped wearing makeup. And to this day, I will still walk out and ask my kids, I don't look like a clown, do I? How's my makeup look?
Wow,
It looks
really?
good. Yeah, I still I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
But it was that personal, right? Like, God, I remember being in sixth grade and my mom told me I ran like a faggot. Pardon me, I hate that word. I'm sorry. However, I say that because to this day I still don't run.
Mm,
Right?
Um,
Like taking
mhm.
criticism personal was a thing I
yeah.
did all the time. And I didn't just take it personal. I took that shit to heart and I held on to it forever.
Yeah. I think for me, what I did was right, very much the same. I took it very personal. I absorbed it. When somebody said it, I absorbed it into my body and it became such a part of me. And then I tend to, right, when I'm unhealthy, I am unhealthy and I go to extremes, right? I would go to that extreme where I'm going to prove that person wrong. Um, and like you said, like, okay, now you said this is too much makeup. I look like a clown. No, I'm just never going to wear makeup. Right? Fine. I'll just never wear makeup. It's almost like that in a right such an unhealthy thought and unhealthy actions, but that's what I would do. If somebody said, "Oh, you can, oh, you I don't know, you're bad at video games." I'm just using it because that's what Colin and I've been doing. You're bad at video games, right? I would overcompensate to be better. And it like and I would make it this point where it's like, doesn't matter. Like, and now it's like, doesn't matter that I'm not as good as Colin or I'm not as good as someone else. Well, no, because that is not who I am. And like you referred to, Ashley, like I am a good person. That doesn't, being good at a video game or a this or a that or right, doesn't make me a good person at the core. And I think there's where for me, I'm shifting that I don't need to. That doesn't mean there's not a twinge, right? Nobody's saying there's not like when somebody says it, I'm like, oof. It just means I don't absorb it anymore.
I was always like, I was a little chubby when I was like around 11, 12. Like I was just, getting into my preteen years and stuff. And had this like really big crush on this guy. I really, really liked him. And maybe I was about 13. And he said to the class, "Oh, she's nice, but fat girls are fun to ride until your friends find out." And my mom used to sometimes like make fun of my thighs. She used to call me thunder thighs and all this stuff. And I really internalized a lot of that. Like my family was really big on like your appearances and stuff.
Yeah.
And by 14, I was an anorexic.
Mm,
Yeah, I stopped eating. I went like by the time I was like 19, I only weighed like maybe 100 pounds.
mm.
Hmm.
So we'll get back to more how obviously where the way low self-esteem shows up in our life. But I love where you transition to, Mel. What what are some of the causes of where our low self-esteem comes from? And mine obviously as well comes from these beliefs and things my family, my parents said to me growing up. But yeah,
I know for myself, it was definitely in my childhood. I think I've mentioned this almost every podcast. Like I did have a very immature mother, and she would just take off, and being abandoned and stuff like that, and going from one home to another home, and not really having stability, and having the trauma, childhood trauma. Um, I think that was the foundation of where my low self-esteem started.
can I ask you a question really quick? Not
Yeah.
to interrupt, but when you say immature, do you mean immature or do you mean young? I'm asking this for a reason.
Okay, well, yeah, I kind of mean like emotional immaturity.
Okay, that's what I
Um,
thought.
yeah,
Okay.
like emotional immature, but she was also like she was immature. She was only 20 years old, and she was a street person. She lived on the
Mhm,
streets, She didn't know what it was like to have a home life either. Like she was a runaway since she was 13 years old.
mhm.
So, she came by it honestly, but again, she didn't have a lot of self-esteem. So what do you think
Right.
she taught me?
Yeah.
She taught me how to put everyone's needs above my own. She taught me that because
Yep.
she did that. And she felt like shit about herself. So, she would beat herself up, and that's what I knew how to do. I knew how to act like my mom, for sure.
Oh yeah, same. Same. For me, my mom had like it's really funny because what you're talking about with your mom, where she ran away at 13, my mom had a stable home growing up, but my grandma got cancer when she was in the eighth grade and then died like a year or so later, a couple years later. And it's almost like that's when like, almost when her growth, like growing up stopped in a way. So she never knew what it like. It's like she never was given self-esteem because, right, she didn't have that mother role to do that. And my grandpa was ended up being abusive to her, so she kind of like stopped then. And so when I'm talking about immaturity, that's what I see in my mom, right? There's this level of immaturity that she could not teach me because she didn't know, right? I'm not criticizing her. How do you teach something you don't know?
Hmm.
Especially, right, there's a difference in self-esteem as a child, self-esteem as an adolescent, and then learning self-esteem as an adult.
Hmm.
Um, she didn't know. She didn't know. So how do you teach that? It's not a criticism of her. She just didn't. No, my dad was the complete opposite. My grandma on my dad's side, she, it's really interesting because I see, had not correlated this until just right this moment, but my grandma, my dad's mom, constantly told him she was proud of him. They were proud of him. They were proud of him. They're proud of him. And my dad had the biggest fucking ego ever.
Hmm.
And where I make this correlation, and whew, man, damn it, HP, damn it. Um, I think about Dylan, who is very low self-esteem, but has this ego like nobody's business. And I'm correlating this. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Because that's what I did, right? Because I didn't get it at home. I want to give it to him. That was my thought thinking. I'm going to give it to him. And it went where he has this ego and he has this crazy, right? But underneath it's very low self-esteem. And so then I'm like reflecting on, was that what my grandma was doing? What my grandparents were doing? Were they feeling less than, or have low self-esteem, feeling less than, and then trying to overcompensate with my dad? It's just, is that how that the generational trauma, carries over? I don't know. And they're
Yeah,
all gone. So,
that's exactly how it translates though.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think about I don't know much about my grandparents' childhood. But I know about my parents' childhood and I know about my childhood and I know about my children's childhood. And if you look at the way the trauma works, that's exactly how it works, right? Like this generation tries to heal this trauma, so they do it this way.
mhm.
And then this generation picks up from that and heals this next one and this next one, or they add to it, right? So, like for me, when I think of my parents, my grandparents, the people who, as a very young child, a baby, a toddler, a young child, a child, there's certain people that have an influence in your life.
Hmm.
For me, the main people were my mom, my dad, my stepdad, and my grandparents, my stepdad's parents and my mom's parents. And when I think about all of those people, none of them were healthy.
Right.
None of them went out of their way to try to make me feel like I was good enough. Instead, they tried to make me better. Right. So my mom wanted me to have better manners. My mom wanted me to do better in school. My grandmother wanted me to use my voice more. My, right. Like all of them wanted to quote unquote make me better.
Can I ask you? Sorry, Ash, I'm going to interrupt for a second because I love where you're heading with this because I think it's important. But isn't that what we're supposed to do as adults? Want better for our kids?
That's a great question, Dawn, because as a parent, when I was young, that's what I was doing raising my children. I was making them better. I was going to make them better than I was. I was
Yep.
going to make them better than my parents were. I was going to make them better.
Doesn't make
My
them better.
my parents were going to make me better.
Yeah.
But let's think about that. What are we telling them if we're making them better?
That they're not good enough.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? If I need to make them better, then how they are isn't good enough.
Hmm.
And that is what my parents taught me. That is what my grandparents taught me. That is what my aunts and my uncles taught me. The people in my life looked at me and they saw promise. They saw possibility.
Yep.
They
Yep.
saw, what's that word? They saw
Promise.
Oh,
potential.
potential.
They saw my potential and they wanted me to live up, quote unquote, live up to my potential.
Yep.
So rather than saying, look at you, you're amazing, you're awesome, you're perfect, you're beautiful, you're worthy, they would look at me and they would say, you need to speak louder. You need
Mm.
to study more. You need to smile when you talk. You need to make eye contact. You need to think before you speak. You need to, nothing I did was ever enough. I
Yep.
needed to do more. I needed to be more. I needed to be better.
And
Hmm.
I think that's what they did though. Like our parents were just pointing out our flaws for us to improve, not realizing, well, all you're doing is pointing out like all you're doing is pointing out my flaws to me all the time. And you're
Right.
forgetting to point out the things that I'm doing really well in.
Right. Like we were set up for failure.
Failure.
Hmm.
I know.
I
And
from the minute I remember my very first memory of how I felt when having conversations with the adults in my life, I felt stupid, I
Yep.
felt small, and I felt not good enough. Always.
And the adults in my life too had this thing where like comparison like they would use comparison like, oh, Jackie, she gets straight A's in school and she's keeps her room spotless, and Mulaney, well, she can't get an A if she tried, and her room is a mess. Like it was always constantly like, why can't you be more like Jackie? Like it was like that growing
They
up.
would always, my parents would always, oh, so and so got an A on their test. Or the big thing, my brother was super into sports, and I have never been a sports kid ever, never been a sports person. I'm still not a sports person. Well, he can play soccer. Why can't you? He can catch a ball. Why can't you? He didn't cry when he got hit. Why did you? Like it was always a comparison, whether it be my brother, my sister, the neighbor kid, the random. We would drive by and there would be a little girl and she'd have a cute outfit on and her hair'd be done. And my mom would be like, look how cute she is. Why can't you be cute like that?
So do you
The
think like
fuck?
low self-esteem is taught?
I believe that our society like children are there's no way they cannot have low self-esteem unless they have a
Right.
parent or a person, an adult in their life that is like, no, you are enough, you were
Right.
born enough, you will die enough, you will always be enough no matter what.
And it's not just our parents. It's also the institution,
Teachers,
yeah, the teachers, the
Mm-hmm.
everyone.
the institutions that we were put into. Like, yeah, exactly. Like the even the bullying. I remember being bullied in primary school. I was a very, very different child. Like
Me
I was
too.
odd. And I didn't, and for people that knew my background story, I I was I wasn't like them, and they made that abundantly clear. Like I didn't have, I wasn't part of the clique on the playground, and I spent a lot of time alone as a little child. So, like
Mm-hmm.
my best friend was imaginary. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean kids are mean to each
Oh
other.
yeah, it's
And
But
I
terrible.
it's a
feel like home is the only place, or the adults are supposed to be the safe place. But
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, in our society, the adults are so wrapped up in living up to other people's expectations that they push the kids to live up to it without realizing that what we're actually doing is damaging our kids' self esteem.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm not enough, then and I can't figure out how to be enough for me and for others, then you know what? Now I have kids. I'm going to push my kids to be better and to be more. And then that represents me as as a person. It was almost like that crazy. Again, it's none of this for me is a conscious thing. It wasn't like I was, oh, I have low self-esteem and I'm going to make my kids better than me. I was doing what at the time, what I thought was the best for them.
I thought my job as a mother was to raise happy, healthy,
Successful.
contributing members
Yep.
of society.
Hmm.
Instead, so that was my view with my first two children, was that I needed to raise happy, healthy, contributing adult members of society. My view with my third child, who is my youngest, is that I need to raise a self-loving,
Yep.
self-aware adult. That's
Mhm.
it. Like, this human being is perfect exactly the way she is. I do not need to make her any different than she is. I just need to give her self awareness and self love, and that's it.
So
Is
for
it
go
is
ahead.
it oh sorry, is it unfair to say too that I know that I'm so guilty of this with Caden. I would put my insecurities on my own little boy.
All the
Like
time.
Yeah.
like I wanted him to have
Every day.
I wanted him to have good grades because it would show that oh, he lives in a good home, and studying is really important to us. You know what I mean? Like it was like he needed to be a well-rounded person to show that my worth. And
Yeah.
this was not conscious. Like you don't I would never consciously put that kind of pressure on my child ever, but I did because I didn't realize I was doing it.
That was
So I'm
I did that exact same thing. My kids
me
had to
too.
dress a certain way because of how society, like if they went out of the house in pajama pants, what would society think of me? And,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and now kids go to school in pajama pants every single day. But yeah, so I believe the root cause of low self-esteem comes from our childhood, the adults in our lives, and the way our society is set up.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Yep.
agree. And
And
like
it
even as a teenager, like look at our role models. Um, that is so hard to obtain. Like dressing the part, looking the part, behaving the part. Like as a teenager, there's so much pressure on them now because of social media. Everything's recorded. You can't fuck up and it not be put out there in the world. You know what I mean? Like that pressure is crazy on kids today, I find.
I never felt the need in my adolescence. I did not try to compare myself or compete with people that were unattainable. For me, it was a very small, like the people it was the other people in my class, the other people, other students, other right because they were better at this than I was, or they dressed better than I was. I never had that unattainable thought in it, like, oh, I want to wear Louis Vuitton,
Gucci.
right?
Yeah,
I I
but
just
we
compare, but if somebody else had Tommy Hilfiger in my class, oh, I want to get a Tommy Hilfiger skirt, or I wanted this. For me, it was a lot lower in that
and
base because,
and for me it was usually made up.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Like I thought this person had this kind of life and I wanted it. And the reality was probably very different than what I thought it was.
hmm I because of that comparison of others in my, in my school and my age group, right? I wanted to get a job really, really early on because I wanted to have money to be able to buy and afford what I needed or what I wanted compared on others. And I was a sports kid. I was very athletic, and so I was working part-time as many hours as I could work because right, I needed a bigger paycheck so I could go buy that Tommy skirt or those whatever shoes or whatever. But then I'm also doing sports. And guess what suffered? Because I'm working and I'm in sports, my grades. And it's really interesting to me because I I remember having a conversation with my guidance counselor. Because you had to, back in the day, I don't know if you still have to do it. I don't think you do, but it's that exit conversation with your guidance counselor before you graduate. Um, and I can sit here. I actually shared this story with somebody that I work with the other day. But I graduated high school with like a 1.7 GPA. Well, shouldn't graduate with a 1.7 GPA. Um, so when it came time to go to college, first of all, how would I get into college? Number one, money was not an issue. I've if I always had the opportunity, if I wanted to go to school, my dad would have covered it. But the shame around the fact of not being able to get into school to be able to comparing myself to others, I wouldn't have gotten in, and I used it as, oh no, I would just go party and I don't want to waste my dad's money. Oh, I would just party and I don't, right? Because I was ashamed that I wouldn't get in because I wouldn't have gotten in. I mean, it took me 10 years to go back to college to get past that feeling less than that I wouldn't just fail out. Um, and I had to take entrance classes even at 10 years later because there was no proof that I could do it. Um, and that stigma and thoughts that I had around that, my son was never, and I say that with that, never gonna experience that ever because nobody helped me. Nobody sat down and helped me with homework. Nobody asked me, do you need help or let me this, right? It either became my mom who and my stepdad who just didn't care because the education wasn't a thing for them, or my dad who, again, his ego and his dictatorship. Love them both, right? That was their trauma. I'm not criticizing anyone for that because it was their trauma, but that control and that dictatorship of you need to do this, you need to do this, instead of finding that balance in there of what do you need? What can we do to help you be successful? And I took that to with Dylan where, right, right, I'm proud of you. I'm going to help your self-esteem. I'm going to, right, let you know you can do this and be successful. And, oh, you're tired and don't want to complete this project. All right, I'll do it. I'll finish it up. Or the project, right? You know how many projects I completed in high school and middle school for my son, my oldest son? And
Guilty.
right? And I witnessed that in him today. Now that I can step back and I can be that outside looking into him, where he struggles with procrastination, right? And right, ADHD runs in our family. I have it, he has it, right? So procrastination is already a thing. But when you struggle with low self-esteem and struggle with I am good enough and I can be successful on my own with what I do in just me, nobody wants to get started on anything because I'm just going to fail or it's not going to be good enough or it's going to be this. Right. I didn't have it and I didn't facilitate it with him. And I see that in him even now, but there's nothing like, I can reparent my son in a lot of ways because of my change in my behaviors and my actions, with my awareness and my growth. But there are certain things that I can't, that he has to figure out for himself, and I have to let him figure them out himself.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting to hear you say about the college story and how much it played into your self-esteem. Um, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and in
Yeah.
that time frame, if you didn't go to college, you weren't going to make anything of yourself, right? If you want to be somebody, you want to be anybody, you need to go to college. And for my mom, it was like you need to be a lawyer or a doctor or like this big a surgeon or a
Mhm.
psychologist, or it wasn't a normal, quote unquote, normal job, right? Like
Yeah.
I wanted to be a dog trainer. And oh, that's you ain't gonna make no money. You'll never be anything of yourself. You can't be a dog trainer. You need to be a lawyer. That was her thing. And so I spent my entire from 5 years old until 14 with my mom pushing homework every night, pushing straight A's, pushing college, telling me I'd never make anything of myself if I didn't go to college. And then I moved in with my dad when I was 14 and I was working and going to school. By the time I was in the 11th grade, I had a full ride scholarship offer to Cornell University for vet school, for veterinarian school. And I was all about it. But we had moved so much when I was living with my dad that I had to go to a different school district because of where I lived. Well, my dad was out. I couldn't find him. I couldn't get a hold of him. He was out drinking, doing whatever. I didn't know where he was. I lived with him. I actually lived in my own apartment, but according to the courts, I lived with my dad. My mom was 2 hours away and she was in and out of a halfway house due to mental health illness. I did everything I could when the school found out I was in the wrong place, and I did everything I could to get started in the new school so I could graduate my senior year. That was all I had left, was my senior year. And I literally had a 4.5 GPA. Full ride scholarship. And I could not get either of my parents to come to the school to sign me up so I could finish my senior year. I actually had started my senior year at the new school, but then the school found
Mm.
out that it wasn't my parents that had signed me up. I signed myself up, and they needed a parent or guardian signature, and I could not get my parents to come. So the school kicked me out. I dropped out in the 12th grade with a full ride scholarship to college waiting for me and a 4.5 GPA, and I dropped out. Um, and I sat with that. Like, I held that. There is still to this day some things about that. Like, damn it, I wasn't even good enough for my parents to sign me up for school. You know what I mean? Like that, those kinds of things that they ingrain so hard to be so important. And then when you need it, when you need the help, when I needed the adults in my life to be there to help me get that extra step in order to get what they told me was so important, and then they weren't there, like that hits the self-esteem. That,
Yeah.
especially as a child, a teenager, even, especially, right? Like, all we want as a teenager, all I wanted was for somebody to love me. I just wanted to feel worthy of someone's time and attention and effort. And when my own parents, the people who brought me into this world, or my grandparents or my guardians, the people who, in my mind as a child, were supposed to love me and care for me and be there for me, when they couldn't do that, the only the only resolution I had, the only thing I could come up with was that it was my fault.
Well, I think that's what happens because we're just so young. We don't have we can't conceptually understand what are our parents going through. So as little ones, when we get deeply hurt by the people that are supposed to love us the most, we can't conceptualize this is their problem. As little people, we think it's our problem. I'm causing this. I did this. I'm a bad little girl. I don't do what I'm told. I'm not good enough, or my family just doesn't love me. And then I think that's like when that fragment takes place, and then you give birth to the inner critic. It happens at such a young age. And then that little critic who was maybe birthed at like became came into fruition at 4, 5, 6 years old is still the little voice that's still playing in my head at 53.
Well, because
Mm.
there's no one there saying, no, it's not your fault. No, you're not wrong. No, it's not on you, right? There's no one there. So it continues to show up in every single aspect of the rest of our entire lives until we are able to become aware.
Yeah. Yeah. So like that inner critic, well, I mean, I think that inner critic is the source of my low self-esteem. It's the voice that shows up in whenever I'm not comfortable in myself.
Yeah. Where else in your life? Like I know, like I said, I alluded to earlier, even now in work, it shows up for me. Where
Parent parenting.
yeah, I hold myself back in work because of my feeling that I'm not good enough to play that we be win with the big dogs, right? It holds back opportunities for me. Parenting,
Literally every
yeah,
single aspect of my life. Like, it shows up in medical, like when I go to the doctor, and anxiety and um, physical ailments. It shows up in driving when I drive a little slower because I'm not as confident in myself. It shows up in parenting. Like, I, I would say literally every aspect of my life, low self-esteem shows it impacts, it affects, it
yeah,
impacts. If I had high self-esteem, if I had self-love, if I had self-worth and value of myself, I would not have nearly the issues in every single aspect of my
mhm,
life that I have had.
Yeah. Making friends, right?
Yeah.
Work,
Relationships.
parenting, relationships, every aspect of relationships. Um, Food, body image, romantic relationships, sexual satisfaction, in a relationship. Like I could just keep listing and listing and listing things that that it impacts.
Hmm.
Um, so I really I want to talk about like this a little bit more because I think it's important because I think that's one area that before I entered into this journey, I didn't realize the like some of these odd things that where low self-esteem impacts me.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
Like
And
in a lot of times, I did not know that I was parenting out of low self esteem.
right.
I did not know that I was working out of low self esteem. Like there are so many things I look back on my work life, and there's so many things that if I had self love in those moments, I would have done so differently. And I would have gotten so much further in those situations because of the way I would have done it differently.
Are we still like do you still want to discuss the hurdles? Because
Keep going.
I
Yeah, but
just I just feel that it's it's curable. Like I don't think that I think and I do believe that every single person on this planet has gone through bouts of low self-esteem. I mean, you can have come from like the most beautiful childhood and not have had a lot of childhood trauma and still like gone to school and everything and gone up for that job and didn't get the job you know,
yeah,
that does something to you, especially when you've really tried and you've put all your all into it and you didn't get the position or it didn't work out for you. I think it's just human nature to fall back because your mind will always look for a reason and usually, you know, you blame yourself.
yeah.
I agree
Um,
with that. I don't think that it needs to have had, I don't think that we need to have had an abusive or toxic childhood in order to have low self esteem. I think that if we did not have self aware parents who were able to say, oh, that kid bullying you said that you were ugly, let me remind you 1,000 times over the next 6 months that your hair is beautiful and you
yeah,
don't look like Medusa, right? Like if I didn't have a parent aware enough to say, oh, that kid called you Medusa, let me make sure for the rest of your life you know that you don't look like Medusa. Then I will have self esteem issues. So it doesn't take abusive or toxic parents to create self esteem issues. Sometimes it can just take unaware parents to
yeah.
create self esteem issues.
Ash, I want to circle back to something you said, and I have a question about it, right? We were talking about how a kid makes fun of says something about your Medusa hair, and then you have the parent that comes in and for the next 6 months will tell you your hair's beautiful. So, two questions with this. One, do you think that it can go that where the parent can overcompensate by telling the kid too much their hair is beautiful? That's number one. And then number two, as an adolescent, do you think we transition from needing our parents?
I think I know what you're trying to ask. Like our parent, like needing our parents to make it better for us and them being able to influence it.
Yes, and then comparing that to our friends, because right in
Correct.
adolescence, it becomes about our
Our
friends
friends, right.
and less about our parents.
So the answer to both of those questions is yes. Yes, I do think you can go overboard with it.
Hmm.
Balance needs to be in everything.
Yep.
And if I tell my daughter that her hair looks beautiful when it looks like the spiders are having a meeting on her head, she's going to know that I'm full of crap. Right. So
Yeah.
I don't want to lie and I don't want to go overboard and over extreme. Oh, you look like a princess. You have the most beautiful hair of anybody I've ever seen in the whole wide world. Like, no, I need to be realistic. Like, listen, baby, some people may not like your hair, but I think your hair is gorgeous and I love your little curls.
Or
And you want to change it? Let's change it. Right. Like,
right. Do you like your hair?
right. So
Like,
yes, I do think it's possible to go overboard. And yes, I do think we need to be careful and find the balance in everything.
hmm
And to the second part of your question, yes, absolutely. As teens, as adolescents, as young adults, we start to pull away from our parents and go more towards our peers. However, or maybe it's an and even though we don't necessarily care, quote unquote, care what our parents think. If our parents, if they can negate the negative things that other children are saying, that society is saying, it may not 100% turn it off, but it makes it lighter. It makes it softer. It makes it right. So for me, being called Medusa was a huge thing in my childhood. I have wild, crazy, curly hair all over the place. And I was bullied really bad by being called Medusa. One of the things that would have made me better with it was if rather than my mom and dad always being like, "Oh, your hair's such a mess. It's impossible. I can't do anything with your hair." Or I'd walk in and they'd be like, "Holy hair." Right? It would have been like if they'd have said, "Wow, you have such beautiful curls. Maybe we can do this or this and it'll look better." Or right, they give me some sort of positive reinforcement to go along with all of that negative from other people. It doesn't take the negative away, but it makes it not hit so hard. And maybe my
yeah.
self esteem would be a little bit better if they had. You know what I mean?
I do. And I think what's in with something else in this, and I love what you said, like, right, as a parent, as I right, I need to be able to reassure my child. I think you're beautiful. I love your hair is beautiful to me. I love it. And I think there's also that piece of it where we have to say, what do you think of it? Do you love your hair? And if child says yes, then you know what? Who cares what everybody else thinks? You love your hair. That's all that matters. And if the child says no, I don't like it. Okay, what are you thinking? What can we do? And be that supportive person. And I think there's where it is. It's right. I need as a parent as and what I needed from a parent was I needed support. I needed someone to support me and lift me up instead of and allow me to lift myself up. I think that's it, right? It's lifting them
Yes.
lifting me up and them showing me how to lift up myself.
If you don't like the color of your hair, let's go pick out a box of dye and you can dye it. Right.
Right? Or what do
Or
you want to do?
you want to cut your hair off because it's long and curly and all over the place and you want to shave the sides of your head, let me take you to the barber. I may
Yep,
not like it, I may not prefer it, but it's your hair. You have to look in the mirror. If you want to make it your way, it's your hair, it's your body. The
right.
only
It grows back.
reason, the only reason to stop a child from cutting their hair or changing their hair or picking out the clothes they want to wear is because the adult is worried about what other adults are going to think.
Yes. And some people could say, "Well, I'm protecting my child because kids are mean." Yes, kids are mean. That kids have been mean since the beginning of time. Kids are
And
gonna
you
continue to be mean.
and me as a parent trying to make my child fit into a mold that society says is the prettiest or best or easiest is not going to make kids less
Yeah.
mean.
It's
However, sorry, Dawn,
no,
however,
you're good.
if I prop my child up where they are, who they are, then they won't worry about the kids being mean because they'll have enough self love that it won't matter to them.
And I think as adults, I mean, right? at 54 years old, and I look at that window of time in adolescence when you're talking pretty much 6 years of your life. 6 years out of 54 years of life. Let people be mean to me and build me up because I sure the hell would love to have had 34 years of self-confidence and and knowing my worth and knowing that I can I can be successful in whatever I put my mind to and not be afraid and shy away from all of those things. And I think there's as because I got stuck in my own trauma of what that was. I wanted to protect my child in that 6 years, but we have to remember it's such a blink of the eye in our lifetime.
It really is. And when it's harder now, the harder it is now, the easier it will be later.
Yeah,
Right. I always try to remind myself that when I am saving my child from a little bit of hurt now, I'm making life harder for them in the future.
right.
Let the kids pick on them and let me reassure them that the kids are wrong. Don't let me make my child into what I think society will accept and what I believe will be picked on the least. And then when they get picked on, tell them they just need to do what I think better. So
Okay.
we've talked a lot this week about the triggers of our low self-esteem, and we've talked a lot about where the low self-esteem comes from and where it shows up in my life. We didn't originally plan to have two different podcasts for this. However, there's still lots more to talk about, and we have a lot more that we want to add to this, more of the opposite of low self-esteem that we would like to get into. So we are going to have another podcast next week about self-love and low self-esteem and the rest of the ways it impacts our lives. Do you guys want to add anything else before we say goodbye to jump into next week?
No, no. We'll do a little recap of this week's just to remind everybody of what we talked about, and we'll get to the next part next week. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Mel, for the conversation, and I'm looking forward to next week.
Awesome. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, listeners. I can't wait to finish up this discussion.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Talk to you next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
We would like to thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery. Visit the Work It website at workityouareworthit.com to submit your questions and topics for future episodes. And remember, work it because you are worth it.